surprising is North Carolina, once part of the Confederacy, still largely conservative. Well, President Bush carried the state by double digits in the last 2 elections, but a new poll out today shows that the race is a dead heat, in part due to the enthusiasm that Barack Obama has inspired, but also thanks to a much larger demographic shift. As industries like textiles and manufacturing died out or went overseas, others, like biotech and banking, have replaced them and brought thousands of new voters into the state, which is really one to keep an eye on next Tuesday. The corporate spires of Charlotte make you glint with all their glass and steel. The tower in the middle belongs to Bank of America, one of the world's biggest. So big, in fact, it's been able to gobble up other failing banks in recent months. The new Wachovia Tower is still going up, even though the bank's fortunes have been heading very much down. Believe it or not, this city is now the second largest financial center in the US after New York. The companies have brought in new money and, of course, new people. The social landscape here has been transformed. But what about the political landscape? The last time North Carolina voted for a Democrat was in 1976. And then it was Jimmy Carter, a Southern Baptist who happened to be the governor of the neighboring state of Georgia. As in other states, which the Republicans once took for granted, the Obama campaign has launched a bold offensive into enemy territory. They've set up 40 offices statewide. The candidate has been here 4 times in under a month and spent 8 times as much on television ads as his opponent. Barack Obama is trying to turn the tide of history by seizing on the new citizens of North Carolina. Kareem Azar was born in Lebanon and has lived all over Asia and Europe. He's married to a Finn, and his daughter now goes to one of North Carolina's renowned colleges. His family calls this place home. Kareem is a manager at Globe Express, one of a myriad of shipping companies that has sprung up around Charlotte's international airport.
Everything has changed. In 1984 or 85, when I came the first time, there was one high-rise building, and all of a sudden you have the whole place, full of big hotels, big chains, and high-rise buildings, so it's completely changed.
No place illustrates the transformation of North Carolina more than Kannapolis, half an hour's drive from Charlotte. This was half a century ago. Virtually everyone here worked in the Cannon textile mill, turning locally grown cotton into pillowcases for a thriving America. The whole town was owned by Charles Cannon, hence the name, Kannapolis. Today it's owned by multi-billionaire David Murdoch, and it might as well be called Murdochville. When the textile jobs moved to India and China, Murdoch decided to turn the dying Kannapolis into America's leading center for biotech research. Main Street was given a facelift. The local restaurant was named after a chromosome. And instead of the old textile mill, there is now a research laboratory that looks more like a 5-star hotel.
Only the best. Only the best. Only the best.
When the research campus is fully developed, there's going to be about 30,000 jobs created because of the North Carolina Research Campus. And again, that's unheard of.
700 megahertz.
Clyde will vote for Obama, and he was confident that the influx of new blood in places like Kannapolis will transform the politics of his home state.
When I was a teenager, the Whataburger was a favorite hangout.
He clearly hadn't talked to Richard Anderson. We met Richard at Whataburger, the last drive-in relic from the old days. A textile worker most of his life, he's officially a Democrat, a conservative one. Unofficially, he leans towards McCain because he's uncomfortable with the idea of one party dominating Washington. Does that scare you?
Yes, it does.
Too many Democrats?
Yes, it does, because that gives no checks and balances in regards to, the country.
But they might get something done, right?
They may, but will it be for good or bad?
We're heading down the Jesse Helms Parkway, named after the state's famous veteran senator who died earlier this year. In 1990, Helms was re-elected to the U.S. Senate with the help of this ad, now infamous for its racial undertones.
For racial quotas, Harvey Gantt. Against racial quotas, Jesse Helms.
They don't show the ad at the Helms Museum in Wingate, but they do celebrate Jesse Helms as a giant of Southern conservatism who helped to turn North Carolina into a natural fiefdom of the grand old party.
I believe that there's some cultural traditions that are staying. Also, I think there's
What are those cultural traditions?
Well, I think there's a religious tradition, you know, that certainly goes back, as I had mentioned earlier. There's a lot of churches, you know, a strong church background here.
What about race?
As far as in
Racism? No, prejudice doesn't exist.
But no more so than you know, any other place.
Well, he got to be known as Senator No.
Race is the issue that dares not speak its name in public. How much it matters in the privacy of the polling booth is just one of the things that will determine the outcome of this election in a state that is changing from rural to urban and in a nation that is divided between the two.
While Senator Obama may be making strides in places like North Carolina, it is important for all of us to remember the blindingly obvious. This election isn't over until the voters go to the polls and get their votes counted. It is a lesson that we've all learned throughout this campaign, but still there are lingering questions of bias and a poll-driven herd mentality. It's an issue that the Politico directly addressed today, and executive editor Jim Vanderhay